Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, Sister Susan. God bless you. Prophetess Asha, God bless you. Thank you all for tuning in. Good night. It's another Monday. It's another day to give, another week to give God thanks, to give God praise. It's a privilege to be alive today. It's a privilege to be here, joining each and every one of you that is tuning in tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to being a part of this conversation. Welcome to Leadership Conversations. It's a time where we take to discuss different leadership topics, and we discuss some of the some of the knowns and unknowns of leadership. It is about us being able to kind of discuss. Good evening, Pastor Letitia. It's a time for us to be able to discuss some of the topics that or the some of the subjects of leadership, and to get an understanding of what leadership is all about, to get an understanding of what steps we need to take to improve in our leadership skills. I say all the time that leadership is about being able to not only be effective in your skill and your abilities, but to be able to be effective in leading others. Right? We all have a duty. We all have a purpose. We all have a mission. We all have an assignment, and we all are called to be leaders. Not everyone is called to lead a big ministry or to lead a large group of people, but we're all called to lead in some capacity. Good evening, Pastor Troy. Thanks for tuning in. We're all called to lead in some capacity. And so, whether it's leading your family, whether it's leading on your job, whether it's leading in your business, we all have a responsibility and a duty to lead. And so, the point of our conversations is to talk, to discuss some of the challenges that come along with leadership, to help us to understand that leadership is it's more than it's not as hard as it seems, but there are some things that we need to learn. It's not something that's exclusive for those that are the overly charismatic, for those who are overly gifted, overly talented, but it's about developing a skill that can be able to inspire, encourage, and build others, add value to others. And so, once again, thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you joining me on this conversation. We've been talking about the cross and the crown of leadership. So far, we've been having such a great discussion. We've been talking about so many great things. I really appreciate the feedback that I've been getting throughout my years of being in ministry, my years of being alive. I've noticed and I've learned from various leaders and various leadership styles, and what I come to realize is that leadership is a two-sided coin, right? It's something that is great and it's amazing to do, but it's also challenging, and it's not for the faint at heart. But what I do realize is that with leadership, it is something that when you build a understanding and you build an expectation, you can truly be able to navigate. The point of all of this is to help you to navigate through, help us to navigate through the waves and that goes along with leadership. When I look at life and look at leadership, I when you look at life, it's like a big ocean, and we're all in our boats going to a destination, and leadership is the compass that guides us. It guides us to where we need to go, takes us from where we are to where we need to go. And so I hope these discussions, these conversations have been helpful. It's been helpful to me. I appreciate the questions that I've been getting, the feedback I've been getting, even your comments. I appreciate, because it really helps to know where everyone is, and it's something that we're doing together. I'm only bringing topics for us to discuss, but ultimately, I'm learning from you just as much as I hope you're learning from me. So, wanted to continue the conversation of the cross and the crown of leadership. And tonight, I want to discuss something that's I think it's something that we need to talk about in this time. It's such a necessary thing to discuss because of all of the challenges that we're facing. 2021 has been a interesting year, such as same as 2020. It's really been interesting, and has come with a lot of challenges, a lot of curveballs that we didn't expect. And tonight I wanted to talk about the cross of leadership. Now, I want to talk about the crown of I plan to talk about the crown of leadership tomorrow. I want to talk about the crown of leadership to next week. Sorry, next week. But I wanted to start with the cross because I think that the time that we're in, we kind of been in a situation where it's been seeming like a lot of cross moments. There's been a lot of moments where it's just been rough. It's been challenging. It's been a lot of trials and a lot of difficulties. And so I wanted to talk about the cross of leadership today. But before we do that, I want to do a quick review. We talked about self leadership in a few lessons ago or conversations ago. We talked about the self points importance of self leadership. Last week, talked about the importance of connecting. It's important that we understand as leaders, as people, as individuals, we have to learn to connect with others. It is the connection that will help you to grow in your ministry. It is the connection that will help you to grow in your business. Good evening, Sai. Thanks for tuning in. It is the connections that you build, the relationships that you build that will determine how far you can go. And so we have to understand that when we're talking about leadership, leadership is all about building relationships. It's all about building connections, building unions, building alliances throughout your journey. Because you have to connect with people before they connect to your vision. Because ultimately people are more drawn to you before they're drawn to your vision. And so I felt like it was important to discuss because there are a lot of leaders out there who are trying to use their influence or trying to lead based on their gifts and based on their talents and their charisma and their personality. And people will be drawn to you for that, but they will not stick with you unless you are able to connect. And so it's important that we understand that we have to connect with those that we're leading. It's important because a lot of people, they make that mistake. They want to go off of their talents. Like I said, they want to go off of their authority, the authority of their position. But people see position as the lowest level of leadership. Positions are limited. And I want to shout out Brother Danny because he said something to me the other day that was so powerful, in that people think that positions last forever. You're never in the same position for your whole life. And so to have that mindset that people have to follow you because your positions change. Positions are temporary, but relationships last longer, right? So you will establish longer relationships than you will establish longer positions. So it's important to understand that, so that when we're talking about connecting and we're talking about building relationships, it's a key factor, because people will not follow you regardless of how inspiring you may be. They may be inspired for a moment, but then they'll turn around and go about their business. So that's an important thing that I wanted us to get to know and to understand. And I want to talk about today about the cross of leadership, the hard part of leadership. Well, let me not say the hard part of leadership, because leadership it has its pluses and it has its minuses. There's the pros and its cons. Good evening, Minister Shanice. Thanks for tuning in. Leadership has its pros and its cons, but I want to talk about the cross of leadership because you need to be able to understand that until you learn to master the cross, you would not be able to master the crown. Until you're able to manage and to bear the weight of the cross, you would not be able to bear the weight of the crown. So, like I said, next week I want to talk about the crown aspect of leadership, because when you think about leadership is an amazing thing. You get to inspire, you get to encourage, you get to lead change, you get to lead innovations, right? You get to explore and explore and expand the unknown, right? You have that opportunity, and it doesn't matter what industry that you're in, whether you're in ministry, whether you're in a nonprofit, whether you're in business, it doesn't matter. Even in sports, even in media, any kind of industry that you're in, there are opportunities to be innovative. There are opportunities to inspire. There's an opportunity to lead change. So those are some of the great things that come along with leadership. You get to add a value to others and cause others to really be propelled into their purpose. And you build a vision, and when you build that vision, you build momentum, and everything comes together. It's a great thing. But before you can hold the weight of the crown, you have to be able to manage the weight of the cross. So I thought it was important to talk about it today, because there are a lot of cross moments that we've been experiencing this last year and a half, right? We've been experiencing a lot of cross moments where it seems like it's unbearable, where it seems like it's just pain, it's just suffering, it's just hardship, it's confusion, all of these things. But all of these things are necessary to help you to be able to bear the weight. Why do I say you need to understand how to bear the weight of the cross first before you can bear the weight of the crown? Because when you are the crown, when you have the crown, when you are the leader, when you're in charge, when you're at the forefront, you're open to criticism. People will praise you, but they will also criticize you. They will scrutinize everything that you do. They will question every decision you make. And until you're able to fully, really bear that, you'll be thrusted into a position prematurely. And so the weight of the cross helps to build that strength. It helps to build that backbone. They always say, "Heavy is the head that wears the crown." That's the saying, right? But when you have learned to carry the weight of the cross, then you're able to bear the weight of the crown. And so I thought it was important that we talk about this tonight. I know that there's a lot going on. I know there are some things that we've been experiencing that have been trying, and it's been hard, and it's been rough, and it causes you to question a lot of things. But I came to encourage you tonight that it's all necessary. It's all to help build you to get to the place that God has ordained you to be. So I wanted to talk about, in leadership and in purpose, the cross always comes before the crown. It's never a fun thing, but it's always a necessary thing. Because before you can bear the weight of the cross, you have to be able to manage the weight of the crown. Now, when you think about the cross, right? I'm talking about, you think about the ministry of Jesus, right? The cross is the symbol of our faith. It's a symbol of what our Christianity stands for, right? The fact that Jesus came and he died on the cross and he rose again. But is the cross the place of his suffering, the place of his hardest, most trying moment, that that represents who we are. We were born out of pain. We were born out of struggle. We were born out of suffering, so that we can be able to see the benefits of being saved. So when you look at the cross is a symbol of suffering. It's a symbol of hardship. You think about Jesus having to carry that heavy cross all the way up to Golgotha to be crucified, right? And we as leaders, we have moments where we have to be like that, where we have to bear the burden of the cross. In these cross moments, right? There are moments where it seems like everything is overwhelming. It seems like the strain and the stress is too much. It seems like it's never ending, right? It just seems like an endless um mental, physical, emotional place of almost, for lack of better words, torture. When you look at Jesus and the fact that he carried the cross, right? It was after he was bruised, after he was beaten, after he was humiliated. He went through all of these things and still carried the cross to the place of his death. When you in those cross moments, right? In those cross moments, you know that it's a cross moment because the people that you're looking to be your support, to be there for you, are gone, right? Jesus, all of his disciples had scattered. They were gone. Peter denied him. This disciple disappeared. That disciple disappeared. And you get into a moment where you are by yourself. Now, what's interesting about 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 the cross moment is that you can be surrounded by a bunch of people but still feel alone. I read about Jesus carrying the cross, and I can only imagine he was barely had strength, right? He barely had strength to carry the cross. He barely had the mental wherewithal to carry. It had been beaten. So his emotionally, when you go through that kind of pain, it takes a toll on you. Physically, it takes a toll on you, and yet he still carried it, right? And in those moments, he was surrounded by people, surrounded by a crowd of people, but still felt alone. Was carrying it by himself, and it's important to understand that there are moments in time in our lives where you can be surrounded by people and be surrounded by a crowd, but still feel alone. It is in those cross moments, right, that you can be feeling like you're overwhelmed by one thing and then something else comes out of nowhere. It's in those cross moments where you feel like you don't have any more strength. You feel like you can't carry on, but you still push through. We have to understand that when we are able to manage and to be able to handle those moments, then everything else is easy to deal with. I think about the fact that that this is the only time where Jesus prayed for it not to happen. How many times have we been in situations where we prayed for God to not allow certain things to happen to us, but they still happen, right? It's like you prayed with your whole heart. You prayed and you prayed and you prayed and you prayed and you cried. Jesus, he prayed and he cried and he sweat blood. And even though he did that, him who being the Son of God, being the only begotten Son, even he in those moments could not turn away from it, could not get God to move, to keep him from going through that situation. And the same thing happens to us as people of God, as people of purpose, as people of destiny, as leaders, is that you go through those moments where as much as you pray for God to change the outcome, as much as you pray for God to do something different, to not allow you to go through it, you still find yourself going through it. It is the hardest moment of your life. It is the moment where you have to make a decision. Do I continue going through this or do I quit? It's in those cross moments that you feel the weight of your assignment. You feel the weight of what God has called you to do. You feel the burden of it, and yet you can't give up. It's in those cross moments where you're looking for sympathy, you're looking for encouragement, you're looking for empathy, you're looking for compassion, and it seems like no one is there to give that to you. It is in those moments that we have to be able to stand strong as leaders, to stand strong as people of purpose, as people with a call and assignment. I look at Jesus, and he went through all of this in that moment, and at no point did he drop the cross. At no point did he stop walking the walk. At no point did he just say, I can't do this anymore. He continued and was focused on what he was called to do. See, we all have to go through those moments, right? We all go through those moments where it becomes so overwhelming and so burdensome that you don't that you want to give up, but you have to keep going. We all as leaders have to go through those moments. It's necessary. It has purpose. It has an assignment. It's all for our good, even though in the moment it doesn't feel that way. And that's the thing. Whenever you're going through anything, it always feels like it's never going to end. It always feels like it's too much to handle, but you have to keep going. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep pressing, because it's all for the purpose of building us up. Now, it's always hard to have these kind of discussions. It's always hard to talk about these things because we don't like to go through the suffering part. But truth of the matter is, whether you want to or not, you have to go through it. And whether you want to acknowledge it or not, you still have to go through it. And so, one of the important things about leadership and what people fail to admit or fail to recognize is that you have to be prepared for those moments. You have to be prepared for those things. See, when you look at the ministry of Jesus, the entire time that he was doing the work, doing his assignment, doing his work, he was preparing himself and preparing his disciples for what was going to happen. He was preparing them so that they can be ready. He was preparing himself so that he can be ready. Too many of us, we get caught off guard because we are only expecting the great things, but we don't expect the suffering part. We don't expect the hardship part. We don't expect the trial part to come. And every person that you see, it doesn't matter who they are. If you look at every great leader, they have a story. They have a story of something that they had to experience, something they had to endure, something they had to deal with on their way to getting to their purpose, right? I just gave you the example of Jesus, right? You look at, I always talk about Steve Harvey and the fact that he lived in his car for 3 years. He lived in his car for 3 years. He had 2 failed marriages. He lost all his money. He had no job. He had nothing. But he spent that time and went through that, had that experience so that he could be able to become the person that he is now. You look at anyone. You look at LeBron James, right? Being the son of a single mother and growing up in Ohio. You look at all of these people, anybody that you look at in history who has been a good leader, who has been a great leader, who has been in a leadership role, has had some cross moments in their lives, moments where they had to experience the hardest of the hardships. They had to endure the what seemed like the worst experience of their lives. And so it's all a necessary aspect of what we do and why we do it. Now, why is the cross necessary? I explained that you have to be able to bear the weight of the cross before you can bear the weight of the crown, right? Why is it necessary? The cross is necessary because it gives you strength. It gives you endurance. It gives you, as Prophet Asher says, no fire, no glory. It gives you strength and it gives you endurance. It trains you to be able to handle pressure. See, when you go through the worst experiences of your life before you get into get onto a platform, you already know how to handle pressure. See, this time that we're in 2020, 2021 is helping us to be able to handle pressure so that when we get to that platform that God has ordained for us to be on, pressure doesn't bother us. Some of the great leaders, you look at Elon Musk, you look at Jeff Bezos, you look at Tim Cook, you look at Barack Obama, you look at the the CEO of Google and all of these big high level companies, right? You look at people, famous actors like Kevin Hart or The Rock or any of these people. LeBron James, they don't allow pressure to bother them. Why? Because they know that they've already experienced the worst things than what is going on now. And so they're able to control themselves in the time of pressure. They've been able to build the strength and have been able to build the endurance to be able to carry the crown. The cross is necessary because it develops character. It is in those cross moments that you truly learn character. You learn integrity. You learn honesty. You learn patience. You learn wisdom. You learn all of these things that can help you to be a better leader. And so, although it doesn't feel comfortable and it doesn't feel good, you know how to make the right decisions in the right moments because you develop the character to be able to lead. You won't be a leader that takes advantage of others. You won't be a leader that abuses those that you lead, because you've developed the character in that time of struggle. David, for 15 years, was after he was anointed king for 15 years, experienced his cross moments, running from Saul, running from the Philistines, running from all of these enemies. And in that time, God was building a character so that he could so that when he got the chance to sit on the throne and be the king, he was able to make the right decisions. It teaches us to control our emotions. See, that's a big thing, because a lot of people don't know how to control their emotions. They go off on the fly. They're impulsive, they're reactive, and they allow their emotions to control them. But if you're going to be a great leader, if you're going to be on a platform, if you're going to lead others, you have to be able to control your emotions. When someone says something sly to you, you know how to control your emotions. When you hear bad news, you know how to control your emotions. When plan A seems like it's failing, you know how to control your emotions because you've been through. And let me say this. I think it's important because you see a difference between certain people who are on a platform and who have obtained a level of success that they're in the spotlight. You can tell who has been through and who has been processed from those who have not been processed. And I can tell you this, that leaders who everyone has to go through the process. Let me say that first. Everyone has to go through this process. The cross moments are moments of processing. Everyone goes through process, and maybe at some point I want to discuss the different types of processes. I want to discuss the wilderness process. I want to discuss the cross process. I want to discuss the cave process, because there are different processes that we go through. The wilderness is a time of wandering. It's a time of discovery. It's the time of just finding your identity. The cave moments are times where you are in hiding, and you're stressed out, but your God is secretly building you. Then you have the cross moments where God is processing you to be able to elevate you to another level. There are different processes that we go through. The wilderness, there's the cave, there's the mountain, side. There is the cross. There are different processes that we go through, and I hope to one day, as God develops it a little bit more and gives me a little bit more revelation, I want to go into those things, because I think it's important to understand the different levels as we go through in leadership. But everyone has to be processed. And you find that if you obtain success before you're processed, you will be processed in the spotlight. There's so many people that are trying hard to become famous. They're trying hard to build followers, but if you are not processed before you get to that platform, you will be processed after you get to that platform. And the worst thing you want that will happen is you will be processed in the public eye. Look at all these famous people that have experienced some terrible things, and they've been scrutinized along the way. The microscope has been on them. Every news cycle, you see them in the media, right? People are always criticizing and judging them. Why? Because they're being processed after they've reached the platform, and that's the worst thing that you can experience, because now everything you do is under scrutiny. Every move you make, every decision you make is under scrutiny. So for me, I prefer to be processed before I get to the platform than to get to the platform and be processed. So it's important to understand, and I want to encourage some people, because it seems you may feel like what you're going through is taking too long. You feel like you've been in the same place for too long, and you feel like nothing is happening. You feel like you're not growing and you're not developing, and things are not happening. You're trying so hard to build and you're trying to establish, and it just seems like you're going nowhere. Don't be discouraged. Be encouraged, because God is just allowing you to be processed so that when you reach the platform, you can be able to excel. It's about being able to when you get to the platform, actually being ready for it and being in a place of acceleration and acceleration. So we have to. It's better to go through your cross moments before you get to the platform, before you get to that next level. So the cross is necessary because, as I said, it establishes strength and endurance. It trains us to be able to handle pressure. It helps to develop character. It helps us to control our emotions. Another thing that's important is that it helps us, it teaches us the power of restraint. The cross moments teach us the power of restraint. Can you imagine Jesus in all that he was able to do, in all of the power that he carried, and the anointing and ability that he carried, being who he was, being the Messiah? He exercised incredible restraint in his moment of suffering. Many of us, when we think about it and we talk about it, we jokingly say that if it was me, I would have called the angels and say, listen, I can't do this. For me, after about 2 stripes across the back, I'd have been like, no, this is it. I would have pulled a Thanos and I would have snapped my fingers and made all of them disappear. Right? But Jesus, being who he was, even in that moment of suffering, was able to express incredible restraint. And we have to understand as people that there is power in restraint. Being able to hold back, right? Being able to bite your tongue when you know that you can respond a certain way, when you know that you can do things to hurt people, when you know that you have connections that people need and they disrespect you, but you hold your tongue and you bite your tongue and you let them be. As leaders, we have to be able to exercise the power of restraint. I know what they said hurt. I know what they did hurt. And I know that there's things that you can do. There's things that you can say. But sometimes it's better to hold your tongue. It can be easy when people cross you to just curse them. But there's power in restraint. And we as leaders have to learn that. We have to learn not to always show our emotions in the time. We have to understand not to always say what comes out of our into our heart before we think about it. We have to learn to have restraint. Jesus had restraint because even though he knew he had the power to destroy all of them, he said, "Listen, I have to do the work that God had called me to do." So there is power in restraint, and the cross moments teach us to have that power. Cross moments teach us to be selfless. It's very easy when you're going through and when you're struggling and when you're suffering and when you're experiencing hardship to think about, what about me? And as leaders, and as you grow and as you grow deeper in God, you have to get to those moments of selflessness where it's not about you anymore, and you're not worrying about how you feel. You know how you feel, and you deal with how you feel in private, but being selfless in the sense of not forsaking the assignment, not giving up on the mission, not giving up on the call. We have to learn to be. These cross moments teach us to be selfless. And selfless is a hard thing that we have to deal with, because it teaches us to not be concerned about how we feel, not about what we think or what we want, but what does God want? What does God feel? What does God think? And so in those moments, it kills things like pride. It kills things like arrogance. All of these things that make you feel puffed up, like I'm the leader, I'm the one in charge, and it keeps you from taking advantage of any of others. Too many people, when they're not processed, they take advantage because they start to think about themselves first and then think about others. And it is important for us as leaders to understand that we have to always be thinking about others and thinking about the mission, thinking about the assignment, thinking about the call. Now, like I said in the first couple of lessons, that selflessness does not mean that you have to kill yourself, right? There's too many of us who allow ourselves to be martyrs unnecessarily. We're not. It's not for us to be martyrs, right? We can't overextend ourselves to the point where we get burned out to help others. We have to be able to be selfless in terms of taking care of others and taking care of the work that God has called us to do. But even God rested. So I know we like to make ourselves available all the time and we always want to be helpful, but there has to be a limit. And we have to find where that limit is that will keep us from breaking, that will keep us from breaking down, because you don't want to do that. You don't want to make yourself a martyr unnecessarily, dying for something that God didn't call you to die for. So I want us to understand that we learn to be selfless. It kills pride and it kills arrogance and all of those things. Another thing that the cross teaches us is that it teaches us to depend on our to depend on our relationships rather than on the anointing. It is your relationship with God that will get you through the hard times, not the anointing. The anointing comes to help you do the work, but there are certain things that the anointing cannot do. There are certain things that we go through. There are cross moments that we go through where the anointing can't help us. It has to be the relationship that we have with God. It has to be our revelation of God that keeps us from giving up, that keeps us from falling out. There's some things that you can't preach your way through. There's some things that you can't sing your way through. There's some things that you can't prophesy your way through. But it depends on the strength of your relationship with God. It's necessary in those cross moments. Jesus didn't depend on his ability to do miracles. He didn't depend on his ability to heal the sick or to open the blind eyes or to cast out demons. He didn't depend on that. It was the relationship with his Father that kept him through the entire process of bearing the cross. He could have done it. He could have done all these things. He could have given himself supernatural strength. He could have healed the stripes. He could have healed the holes in his hands and the holes in his feet. But all he focused on was his Father and the relationship that he had with God. And so the cross moments deepen our relationship with God. It helps us to get more in tune with God. It helps us to get to hear God, to have a better understanding of God. It teaches us to depend on our relationship and our revelation of Him. The entire time Jesus was on the cross, all he cared about was the fact that his Father forsook him, and he had the sensitivity to know when God left him. He knew to pray. He knew to sing, to worship. All he did was focus on God in the entire time. The entire time he's going through and he's experiencing what he's experiencing. He's only talking to God. He's saying, "Why have you forsaken me?" He's saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." He's saying, "Into your hands I commit my spirit." All of these things that he's saying to his Father. And in those cross moments, we have to be careful not to neglect our relationship with God. Sometimes the hard things can be so hard, and it can be so struggle, such a struggle, and so difficult that we turn to sin, because sin brings us comfort. Sin brings us comfort. And so sometimes we tend to turn to the sin rather than turn to God. But in those cross moments, make the decision to turn to God. Make the decision to build your relationship with Him. Make the decision to grow deeper in Him. It's in those cross moments that we have to make that decision. Do I turn away from God, or do I pursue Him? And when you pursue Him, you find that God is there, and you find that God is with you the entire time. Read the book of Psalms. You see all of the Psalms where David is going through, where he's complaining about his suffering and about his enemies. He still finds ways to recognize God. He still comes to the realization that even if I make my bed in hell, you're with me. And as godly leaders, we have to always have that connection to God. We have to always be able to turn to him in those difficult moments. Whether it's in ministry, whether it's in business, you have business decisions to make. Do I take this deal or do I take this deal? Do I sign this contract or do I sign this contract? What endeavor do I pursue? What step do I take next? What project do I work on next? In those moments, it is when you have to go to God as godly leaders, because God would never stir you wrong. And so in those cross moments, I admonish you to deepen your relationship with God. Because when you deepen your relationship with God, then everything else comes. Then the anointing comes. Then the power comes. Then the grace comes. Then the giftings come. Then all of these things, right? You read Ephesians. You read Ephesians, and Ephesians says that he went down and he gave gifts to men. It was when he died and he rose that he gave gifts to men. So it is in those moments of those cross experiences that you even to learn and develop new giftings. God gives births new giftings and new things, new ideas, new revelations in those moments. And so we have to keep that in mind when we're going through our cross moments, because those cross moments will prepare us to hear God when we have the crown. Another thing that the cross moments teach us is it teaches us to develop thick skin. It breaks the spirit of offense. Right? Look at Jesus and all that he's experiencing. And all that they're doing, they're shouting, crucify him, they're mocking him, they give him the crown of thorns, they're beating him, they're doing all of these things. And he develops a thick skin. None of these things bother him. He's been betrayed. The same people he was ministering, the same people that he was healing, he was feeding, they all turned against him. It's in those moments when you are going through, in those cross moments that you're going through, that you develop thick skin and the spirit of offense breaks. So that when you get to that platform, when you get to that higher level, that elevated level of your leadership, when you get into that place where you're building momentum and you're developing a rhythm and you're growing success, things don't bother you as much as when you didn't go through. I look at some of these stars, and Kevin Hart is such a good example, because with all that happens with social media and this cancel culture and all of these things, he doesn't let any of that stuff bother him. He says it's whatever. Dave Chappelle, the comedian, is the same way. He doesn't let any of these social media trolls bother him. He doesn't let anything that the media says about him bother him. Because when you've gone through hell and you've gone through tough decisions, tough experiences, when you've experienced loss and you've experienced brokenness and you've experienced pain, things that people say and that people do don't even bother you, because it's like it doesn't even compare to what I've been through. What you have to say, all right, you don't like what I'm preaching, you don't like what I'm teaching, you don't like what I'm selling, you don't like my products, and it doesn't matter, because when I was broke and when I didn't have anything to eat, you weren't there. So because I was able to survive being broke, being hungry, being poor, because I survived those things. Now these things that you complain about, that you talk about, it doesn't do anything for me. So it builds that thick skin, because too many people, they start their ministries, they go into leadership roles, they start their businesses, and they never get over the spirit of offense. So every little thing bothers them. Every little thing gets on their nerves. It annoys them. They get upset. They start to play the blame game. They walk in their insecurity. Everything seems to, even when people are not even saying anything about you, you take offense to it. These kind of things has to be broken, and it's in those cross moments that God breaks those things from us, so that we can be able to move forward and not be bothered. I think about Saul, right? Saul was one who received the crown, right? Literally received the crown before he was processed. And he always worried about rejection from the people. He always worried about what people might say. He always worried about what was going on, what the people were moaning and complaining about him. All of these things he was always worried about. But when you get to that place, you can't allow those things to bother you because you have an assignment, you have a vision, you have a mission that you have to work towards. And so these things that we go through build a thicker skin so that the menial things, the small stuff, the small minutia things don't bother us because we're thinking on the bigger scale. Every successful person is not bothered by criticism. All of those who are in the millionaire status, billionaire status, they're not worried about what people have to say. They're not worried about what critics have to say. And so I'm trying to get to that place. I'm trying to get to that place of millionaire and billionaire status. So I'm learning thick skin. I'm learning not to let things bother me. Because when you are able to handle the suffering and the pain and the hardship, when you get to that platform, man, I'm focused on what I need to do. So it's important that we understand that and understand why we go through the things that we go through. What is God trying to build in you? Right? I always say that God speaks to us from the future. Every time God speaks to us, he doesn't address what we're going through in the moment, but he's always talking about the future things because everything that you go through now is to prepare you for the next. And so what is God allowing you to go through now? What are you experiencing now to prepare you for the next? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel comfortable, but it's developing thick skin. The things that you were worried about, the things that you were concerned about, the things that would normally bother you, that would normally keep you up at night. God is breaking those things off of you so that when you get to that higher plane where things become more intense, remember, leadership and platforms, the higher you go, the more intense it gets. The more open that your life becomes, the more visible you become. And so there's a whole heap of pressure that comes with success. There's a whole heap of pressure that comes with reaching your vision. We're all wanting to do what God has called us to do. We're all working towards doing the work that accomplishing the goals that and the vision that God has given us. But there is a lot of pressure that comes with when you get there. There's a lot of pressure that comes with being the king or having the crown or being the leader. So God is breaking all of these things that we're experiencing now. All these things that we're experiencing now, God is breaking certain things from us so that we can be able to handle the pressure of that. So it helps us develop thicker skin. It teaches us love and compassion. You cannot lead. You cannot be effective without having a level of love and compassion. Because as a leader, you can see what people are going through and know and identify with it and know that and do what you can to help them. We have to stop always thinking about my vision, my goals. But if you want to be successful, if you want to build a great vision, bring on people who have similar goals and similar things that you can help them with, that you can help them to develop. Because when you help them to develop in their areas and their expertise and to reach their goals, they will help you to reach your goals. Right? So it's important to understand that you have to have that love and compassion because people will go through what you have gone through, and you'll know how to advise them. You know how to direct them. You know when you're running a business and someone's coming in and you know they're off. You know they're having an off day, right? There's too many. How many times have you gone to work on when you're having an off day and your boss or your manager doesn't seem to care? They're just talking about business, business, business. And then and deadlines. But no one is caring about you as the individual. They're just only caring about what your job is. You can never run a successful company or have a successful ministry if you don't care about the people that you're leading. You cannot have a successful nonprofit if you don't care about the people that you're leading. right? So a important tip that anyone who's in a leadership position, it's important to check in with the people that you're leading. It's important to check in with the people that you're leading. It's important to see how they're doing. Where are they emotionally? Where are they mentally? Where are they spiritually? Not just to be, not just focus on, can you do this? Can you do that? I need this, I need that. But check in, see how they're doing. When you do that, then you maximize their productivity. See, if you try to maximize productivity in a person who is is going through something, or who is experiencing a rough time, you will never get the full maximum. So you have to learn to love and to have compassion and to care, not just about your objective, but to care about them. What's interesting is that the other day I was watching a podcast. It's called I Am Athlete, and it was a past episode, but I was watching a podcast, and before they even started, the main host said to each person that was on the panel, he said, before we start, how are you doing? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing emotionally? How are you doing mentally? How are you doing in your family? That's the first thing he asked them. And they all took turns going around. All five of them took turns going around, giving a scale of 1 to 10 where they were. And he said that as a former athlete, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have rough days and to have good days where money is good, even financially. How are you doing financially? Where money is great and things are great, the family is great, and then there are some days where it's just not. I'm just not good. And I was impressed by that, because rather than kicking off the show, just jumping into the topic that they wanted to talk about, he took the time to ask them, how are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you? Are you on a 5? Are you on a 2? And wherever you are, I understand, because I've been there before. If you want to maximize productivity, those are the kind of things that we have to do. You want to maximize productivity in your business, in your ministry, in anything that you're starting. Take the time to ask people how they are, and not only ask them, but really ask them and be interested in what they're talking about. Because too many times we ask, "How are you doing?" but we're not really interested. It's kind of just a formal thing. You're expecting the person to say, "I'm fine," and anything more than that, you want the conversation to be over. But when you truly take the time to care and to have compassion and that love, then you really can be able to help that person and help the organization grow. So last few things that I said, it gives us thick skin. It breaks the spirit of offense. Sorry, breaks the spirit of offense. It teaches us love and compassion. And then the last thing that I want to touch on is that cross moments give us credibility. And credibility establishes authority. I'm going to say that again. Cross moments gives us credibility and establishes authority. Authority is built and established by your level of credibility. You never see someone who is fresh on their job, who's 2 months on the job, have a level of authority as someone who's been there for 20 years. See, when you are able to endure, when you're able to develop that credibility, you've been there long enough, you develop the experience, you develop the wisdom and the knowledge that comes along with it, then you begin to grow in your authority. People think that it's your anointing or your title or your position that gives you authority. No, it's the authority that you have that gives you the anointing. It's the authority that you have that gives you the title. So people think that it's a shortcut. Let me get ordained as a prophet, or let me get ordained as an apostle, because once I get that title, I can have the authority. I a couple months ago found a website where someone is selling. You can get licensed as an apostle, and you get a 6 DVD set, or you can be ordained as a prophet. and get the DVD set, and it's only $50. Only $50. You pay $50, and this person will license you as an apostle, will license you as a prophet, will license you as a bishop. And people really think, there are people that really have in their mind that if I can get these titles, then I can get the authority. But the authority comes with your ability to endure. It comes with your endurance and your credibility. And so the cross moments build that credibility. I have been through this, I've experienced that. And because I've been able to stand and endure that, then I can be able to, then I developed the credibility. What made Israel so effective is that during the 40 years that they were in the wilderness, God was building their credibility. Bishop T.D. Jakes, he taught a message that was so powerful and so inspiring, that the fact that during that time of the 40 years of Israel circling around in the wilderness, that it was God shifting, changing, rebranding them from being Egyptian slaves to being children of Israel, and he was establishing their credibility. So they were defeating certain people, they were conquering certain people, and it was all developing the credibility of Israel, so that when they got to Jericho, the Rahab was able to say, "Oh, I've heard." The people were fearful of Israel because they heard of the God that delivered them from Egypt. And so it is in the credibility, our ability to endure our cross, to be able to carry the weight of it, and to be able to manage and to be able to develop the patience and the wisdom that goes along with it, that gives us the authority. You cannot get, there's no shortcut to credibility. There's no shortcut to authority. How long have you endured? What have you gone through that has built you up to get to the place that you're trying to get to? So everything that you're going through, everything that you've experienced, God is using it to build credibility. He's using it to build authority. That's what made Paul so much more powerful than the sons of Sceva, because they had no credibility. They had not endured anything. They had not experienced anything. They just was trying to cast out devils. They just were trying to do what Paul did, even though they hadn't been through what Paul had been through. So many of us, we don't like to experience things. We don't want to experience things. We just want God to anoint us with wisdom, and anoint us with power, and anoint us with grace, and anoint us with the ability to do. But it's in the credibility that those things get built up. It's in the credibility that allows you to develop the weight. It allows you to develop the weight. It allows you to develop the kabod. It allows you to develop the authority to be able that when you speak, that things will happen. And so I know we're in a hard season and in a rough patch where it just seems like everything is going wrong all at the same time. And it feels like it's too much to bear. It feels like you're going insane mentally. You feel like you're off the charts. One day you're up, the other day you're down. Physically, you feel the pain in your body, and you feel up today, you feel down tomorrow, right? It is in your finances. You feel like I got money today, tomorrow I'm broke. But in these things, God is in these cross moments. God is building the weight, building the strength, so that when you get to that place, when you get to that position, when you get to that platform, that you're able to carry the weight of the crown, that you're able to lead effectively, that you're able to be able to have an impact. It's about impact. And without weight, you cannot have impact. And I'm sorry, because I feel it in my spirit, and I'm trying to keep it in the lesson format and not preach it, but you cannot have impact without weight. When they talk about meteors that hit the earth, they measure it by its impact, by how hard it hits the ground. And by how hard it hits the ground and by how heavy it is the greater the crater that it establishes. When a small meteor hits the ground, it makes a small impact. But when a bigger crater hits, because of its weight, because of the force, because of its momentum, when it hits, it has maximum impact. And it creates a greater damage. It creates a greater impact. It's more visible. And so we as leaders want to establish, to build great vision. If we as leaders want to have maximum impact, then we have to be able to develop, to hold the weight of the cross. The weight of the cross will help us to develop the weight that we need to be able to make the maximum impact. And I hope this is, I don't know who this is for, but I'm hoping that this is encouraging to you. I want to encourage you that no matter how hard it seems, no matter how broken you feel, no matter how much you want to give up, it is about building the weight so that you can have maximum impact. So that when you reach that platform, so that when you reach that level, you can be able to accelerate your full potential and accomplish what God has called you to do. And so don't be discouraged, don't give up, don't quit, don't allow what you're going through to shift you from where God has placed you. In those moments, you may feel like nobody cares. You may feel like it's too hard. You may feel like it is too much to bear. You may feel like you're nothing. You may feel like God lied. You may feel like you have no purpose. You may feel like your life is worth nothing. No one cares if you live or die. Nobody cares if you make it. Sometimes it even feels like God has abandoned you. In those cross moments, you may feel like God has abandoned you. Jesus cried. He said, "Why?" He said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Even he felt the moment where he felt like God had abandoned him. And we all go through those moments where we wonder where God is, why God hasn't done anything, why God hasn't moved. But it's about God building and developing the weight so that when we get to the platform, when we get to that place of bearing the crown, the weight of the crown won't be too much. I'll leave this and leave this last point with you. My pastor, she preached a amazing message yesterday on Psalms 23, and she talked about the light and how when you're walking through the shadow, the valley of the shadow of death, that you have to have light in order for a shadow to be cast. And even though it seems like it's gripping you and it's intimidating and it makes you fearful, it it, it um it's only a shadow. And it was such an awesome message that she preached. And while she was preaching it, I got it. I even got more from it when she was talking, because when you look at it, the closer you get to the light is the bigger the shadow seems. I'm gonna say that again. The closer you get to the light is the bigger the shadow seems. And so you may feel like the fear is gripping you and intimidation is gripping you, and you feel like the devil is bigger than you, and you feel like these situations are greater than you. It means that you're in the right direction. It means that you're closer to the light than you think. Yes, it may seem overwhelming, but it's all a distraction, because the closer you get to the light, the bigger the shadow seems, the bigger the intimidation seems. And so the more you feel fearful, the more you feel intimidated, the more you feel like giving up, don't give up, because you're closer to the end point than you think. And so we all have to go through these moments, and it's not comfortable. It's not the best thing to go through. It's not the best thing to experience. But as you go through it, keep pressing, keep your resolve that I'm going to keep going until I get there. I may fall, I may get cuts, and I may get bruises, but I'm going to keep going. Because as she broke it down yesterday, once you make it through that valley, then you get to the table. We're trying to get from the valley to the table, right? He prepares the table before me in the presence of my enemies. And I was sharing with my wife yesterday that if God was to put us at the table in the presence of our enemies before we made it through the valley, then we would allow our enemies to intimidate us. We would allow our immaturity to move us from our position from at the table. So everything that we're going through, the cross moments that we're going through, is to help us to get to the table, right? David talked about He anoints my head in the presence of my enemies. At the table, in that place where God anoints you, if you are not prepared, you will allow even the presence of the enemies at your table to shift you from being anointed. And so I want us to understand that, because we don't want to go through the cross moments. We don't want to go through the valley. We don't want to experience these things. But if you do not go through that, when you get to the table, you will allow them to deceive you. You will allow them to manipulate you. You will allow them to intimidate you out of your position. See, when David got to the table of his enemies, he wasn't intimidated by his enemies because he had already overcome. And so the anointing comes when God anoints you in the presence of your enemies don't even bother you. You're not offended because they're there. You're not afraid because they're there, because you know that you've developed the maturity, you developed the weight, you developed the strength and the endurance, you developed the credibility to sit at the table. And so the crown moments are coming. There is going to be a time where you receive the fulfillment of the promise, where you receive the accomplishment of your vision, where you receive you start to build the momentum, and it seems like you can't miss. There comes a time where you reach a level of success where everything you hit strikes gold, and there is no missing. There is nothing that you miss. Everything is successful. You build that momentum. Those moments are coming. I still believe that this time that between now and 2030 is going to be an amazing time of our lives. But we have to endure the cross moments so that we can bear the weight of the crown. And so I'm going to leave that with us. I hope that someone was able to get something from it. It was a hard topic to discuss, because it's always hard to discuss the hard things, and it's always hard to talk about the cross, and it's hard to talk about the trials part. It's very easy to talk about the goods and the successes and to make people feel good and to shout, but this stuff helps to establish the weight and the credibility and the foundation. And God is building credibility in us. He's building the authority in us. He's building the weight in us. And so I admonish each and every one of us that carry your cross. Whatever your cross entails, carry it. Because ultimately there comes a point of glory. There comes a point of resurrection. There comes a point of being elevated and excelling. And so I hope that this was encouraging to you. I thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate everyone that was on here. I thank you so much for your comments. I'm reading your comments as I'm teaching, and everyone. I value your participation. I value the fact that you take the time, because this hour that you've taken to sit and spend with me on this live, you could have been watching a show. There's so many shows on Netflix. There's so many shows on TV that you could have watched. But I really and truly want to express my appreciation, my gratitude for you tuning in. I hope that you were able to get something from it. I hope that you can take this into your week. Be encouraged this week. Be encouraged this week. I want to encourage you that regardless of what you're enduring, it's only building the weight, and the crown is coming. We all are building and experiencing the suffering of this life so that we can make it to heaven and get the crown, right? My wife one time preached an amazing word about the crown. There comes a crown when we have accomplished all that God has called us to accomplish. And so be encouraged this week that regardless of what the enemy may try to tell you, regardless of what people may try to tell you, regardless of what situations will try to tell you, at the end of the day, it's building the weight, it's building the authority, and God is with you. Bible says that he would never leave us nor forsake us. And so I wholeheartedly believe that God is with you, and that would never leave you nor forsake you. And so allow this week to be a week of encouragement. Allow this week to encourage yourself. Give yourself some room, some grace, and enjoy the process. I know it's hard to say, but We got to learn to enjoy the process. So thank you so much. I love you all. I look forward to continuing conversations next week. Next week, I want to talk about the crown. I'm excited about that. I want to talk about the crown. So thank you so much. I hope you all have a blessed week. I pray that God will bless you and make you a blessing, that the blessings of Abraham will be upon you, that the blessings of Jabez will be upon you, that God will give you favor with man and favor with him. Jesus, he had favor with God and with men. And so I pray that God gives you favor with both God and man. And have a blessed week. I will see you next week. Take care.